What are we to do in the end times? How can abuse be character building? What is present in the experience of trauma? What is the vicious cycle? How does discipline enhance individuality? What are the types of vampirism? Precedential Satanism of Predator 7 by Tempel of Blood. Outside some inner city gates is something more stark, where our identities are obscured in a deeper dark. What is the psychological and what is the spiritual in extreme experiences? 1,000 points of light imbibe those who have aspired through eyes wide shut, and the most dangerous game for the Lord of Earth in their worldly ambitions. Civilization is being changed by one consciousness at a time. Others lose degrees of independence in their denial, apathy, and lack of awareness. We are crowned with controlling our bodily responses and impulses. Our sigil is as a weapon of insight, survival, and striving upon what we are a part of. In true Luciferian spirit, the Chateau des Amoureux and the connected organization produces those who are shadows of themselves and those who find their place with Abraxas, Baal, Moloch, or whatever you want to call the god of this world and age, shine forth with their influence for the dark stars they are incarnating the will of. We want to be able to take on forms of projection and bring about altered states in reliable ways. Costumes and modes of acting may not be the thing, but forms can be used to connect to the projections of others to better attack. Whether what Freud means by trauma are disassociating difficulties, these are the memories can be turned towards personality functions. The Mothers of Darkness Castle is not the only connection to the idea of the chosen son or daughter of the dragon idea in the lineage of Saint Vlad Tepes, Dracula. The conservative faith groups that saw themselves in a spiritual war with Satan were a place for those causing a shock to society to operate. Secular alternatives to religion tend not to fix the repression and abusive nature of corrective and encouraging methods. How might we step aside from the mental to let something else in and transfer the dialectic? How might our personalities be faceted beyond guilt and shame? People within the organization may give you ideas of how you might personally impact yourself and others. The opportunity for change in the face of the coming cost of war and technological pitfalls takes preparation. Some of that is the infernal forces that will more explicitly have their role, when ours is also part of the spiritual system that is trying us. Then differences among us are not discordant. Abuse and direction may have shaped the satanic character, are being witness to the horror of life did. We are cenobitic. And we make teachings and practices of the undead forces available for those who wish to be quenobitic, obsolete beasts who impact on a level beyond the physical with a causal beings in the harsh extending of our authority. She knew what was coming, and now it is time to go through it. The past opens up spiritual possibilities. Some choose to identify with the damage and as the person are type of person that the abusers say they are. How can we control the direction and shift of identities? There is something out there to partake in, but never to bring home. I include the Bloodhound Gang in the meme because James Moyer Franks looks much like the guy at the end, and there is a sinister element about that musical group. And by cenobitic, I know the reference is more to the Hellraiser movie way of thinking, in which, you know, the tormentors are sort of amoral. It's not a moral thing for them, one way or the other. But I thought I'd get into the basis of those terms, and I don't mean one side or the other in any particular derogatory term. Of course, the Satanic Panic claims tended to be exaggerated as much as the Mother of Darkness castle. Things seem to go very deep in terms of the testimonies and missing people and all sorts of stuff and connections to NATO and all that sort of stuff. The Nazium thing, well, I would have figured that Gog and Magog originated thing would probably go back further than, you know, the 600s, right? And but, you know, a lot of what goes on is because people think they learned in church that they had to be a certain way, or they learned in their conservative faith group that they had to be a certain way if they weren't part of that type of faith or weren't part of that faith. And there were these stereotypes put forth. And so some people, to prove that, this stuff here goes way back before the William Guy Carr based Illuminati scams that people pull around Hollywood and stuff like that. But there is real satanic ritual abuse. But more common than that is perhaps indirect influences And also more common than that, but not as common as indirect influences, is the aspect of people turning their abuse, the fact that they were abused or whatever, towards those ends, using the consciousness of something that happened towards those ends. And so you don't have to be part of some elite group of, yeah, those are not movie titles, by the way. I've never seen those movies. And, you know, some of this information came out around the time that Temple of Blood is said to have been started. 1996. I don't know what source said 1996, and I know was an individual in the organization that was saying that was when it was started as well. But yeah, some of this information was coming out around that, and so it very much became part of the forums that were directing us. And, you know, Bluebird, Iron Gates, it's saying, you know, these are texts that are supposed to have an effect on the Temple of Blood operator, or whatever you want to call it. But, you know, you can operate in these categories to have these sorts of effects on yourself and others without, you know, necessarily being criminal or perverted. And being criminal and perverted in the sense of, oh, well, they say not to be this, so I'm going to be this. It's like, no, we're operating on a sideways mode. We're not, it's not whether they say to do this or not to do this. Well, I'm muddying the waters. My paper that I wrote was a lot better than my comment added at the end, but you know what I mean.